In this week's Two Wheels Better, we ride Aprilla's hooligan two-stroke, the RS 250, and Jeff works out with Neil Hodgson. Oh, don't panic. I know it looks like a car, but this is still two wheels better. And this week we thought we'd have a look at trikes. Now, trikes and bikes have been together and around for a long time. Most of the trikes that we see at bike shows and bike events are the same sort of configuration. Motorcycle front end and a back axle off a car, and the engine is sometimes at the front, sometimes at the back, and there's an assortment of bodywork and bits and pieces in between, however you want to make it look. But the connection between trikes and bikes is a very, very old one. Speaking of very, very old things, here's my mate, Jeff Stone.
Well, I think I shall ignore that remark, like I do most things that Paul says anyway. But talking of old things, this Morgan, 1932 Morgan, uses a bike engine though, V-twin matchless engine, chain drive at the back. This was the business in the 1930s, the sporting bike for the young blade, not Fireblade. But look at this one here, beautiful little Morgan here. Again, under here is a V-twin matchless engine, side valve this time. But there it is, nestling neatly there, radiator behind it. Beautiful little thing, and it's only done 40,000 miles since 1934. Amazing. But anyway, if you were to look at a modern V-twin engine, what would you think of? Perhaps you'd think of Ducatis, but what about Motor Guzzi's?
Now here's a lump that I recognise, a V-twin Motor Guzzi engine. Tony Divey, this is a Triking. Now you are Mr. Triking, aren't you? You make these things.
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Triking.
What on earth possessed you? How did you get into this?
Well, I've always been a Morgan enthusiast, or a three-wheeler enthusiast. I'd had 8 Morgans, and I couldn't see me commuting between Norwich and Munich in a Morgan, so I decided to make myself a Triking. Well, it wasn't called a Triking, but I made it, and then other people wanted them, and it sort of carried on from there.
Right, and how long have you been doing this now?
Well, I'll be starting the Land's End trial at Easter for the 20th time, still with the same one. It's done about 600,000 miles.
Flipping it. Yeah. Brilliant. So, but I mean, going back to the engine, because that's the bit I recognise. You would see that in a Motor Guzzi Le Mans. Is that right?
Yeah, that's apart from the fact this has got twin plugs, which is a bit of tuning, and it's got some Triking heads and an alternator, so you can go out in the dark. Right. Yeah. There wasn't enough power for the bike alternator.
Right. And what about you? I noticed I've seen you whizzing around. You've got reverse on these as well.
Not necessarily, but this one has. Yeah.
So is that different gearbox as well then?
It's a car gearbox, yeah, typical car gearbox, 5 forward and 1 reverse.
Lovely,
we have to do a few different things. We make most of the bits for that.
Right. So you say, I know you make these, I mean, an awful lot of work in it. How many do you turn out in a year, say?
Well, I made about 130 in 20 years, so I suppose about 6 or 7 a year.
Blimey, eh? Well, I'm a much sought after machine, I don't doubt. What's it going to cost, Tom? It's beautiful. Are they expensive?
Well, this one's second hand. It's probably going to Japan for 15 grand.
Wow, right. Well, if I said to you now, I like this, it's great fun, make me one, what's it going to cost me?
Well, if it was the same as this, with Connolly leather and a few bits and bobs, probably the best part of 20 grand. But we're doing one for nearly 30 grand for Japan at the moment. So
I could have one of these for a bit under 20 grand?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more.
Do it in kit form. Find yourself a bike and 7 grand upwards for the components we make.
Brilliant, and a lot more fun than a Ford Escort, eh?
Well, not necessarily. Depends.
Oh, I think so, don't you?
Driving, yes.
Yeah.
Well, here I am in a very cosy cockpit in this little Morgan with the proud owner, Harry Cartwright. Harry, how long have you had this beautiful little example?
I bought this from Romsey, from an advert on the Motorsport magazine in 1982.
And did you have to do a lot of work on it, or was it like this? I mean, it's immaculate.
Well, it's been totally restored. It was very complete when it came, although it had been standing for all those years and rusty in places. But we did a total overhaul from completely dismantled, and from the chassis upwards has been restored.
Well, I must say, I mean, it's really quaint being in this. I think that's the word. Can you tell us, what are all these controls you've got like, here on? I know it's at the handlebars, but on the steering wheel.
Controls are at hand with the steering wheel. They move with the steering wheel. The big one here is the throttle, or the accelerator, we call this in the car. The next one is the extra air, as in motorcycle controls, or choke in the way of cars. And this one is the advance and retard for the ignition spark.
And so there's no foot throttle or whatever then down there?
No, the two pedals, left is for the clutch and the right for the rear brake.
So this must take some getting used to then, is it? To sort of which hand to use next? And
yes, one has to remember, especially if we're driving one car one day and this car the other day. So it's a matter of getting used to it and realising where you are.
In the old days, you used to have matchless bikes. So what was the sort of link to the Morgan? Was it because you sort of wanted to keep that affinity, or was it just that you wanted an old car?
No, I like V-twin engines, and especially V-twin side valve engines, and these use those. And well, I've just always had the desire to own a Morgan three-wheeler.
So it was the engine first, and then the car followed.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Harry. Well, now for something completely different and bringing us right up to the 21st century is the Grinnell Scorpion, BMW powered, and this is the creator, Mark Grinnell. Mark, how did all this start?
I'd owned a couple of BMW K-Series motorcycles, and I thought the BMW powertrain was a very good ideal powertrain for a three-wheeler setup. So we decided to build something completely different, really, exploit a market which wasn't really tapped.
And you certainly did this, didn't you? I mean, it's got the two front wheels like the Morgans that we've seen, single back one, but bang up to date. I mean, you've got very sort of racy-looking front suspension. Is that your own design?
Yes, the whole idea was originally taken from the Morgan theme, if you like, two wheels at the front. The old Morgans, of course, we raced at Brooklands and other race tracks like that. And sure, we've borrowed ideas from race cars and race technology to try and bring the car up to date to make it handle right. It's a mid-engine vehicle with a very nice balance.
Yeah, and so what's he got underneath this? Has he got a tubular chassis or just space frame chassis? Is it?
Yeah, it's a tubular space frame, as you say. There are various different gauges. It's TUV approved and tested. It's approved for just about all European countries. And of course it's a mid-engine vehicle, so the engine and drivetrain is behind me as opposed to the Morgans that you've just seen with the engine on the front.
Yeah, and right behind you at that. Now, how do you get on with BMW? BMW don't give away engine, well, I don't suppose they do give it away, do they? But I mean, they don't let you have engines lightly, do they? So they've approved you, have they?
Well, from the outset, we designed the car with the intention of trying to obtain BMW approval where we could possibly get an OE agreement. We were successful in doing that. We went to BMW with the first prototype and showed it to the powers that be down in Bracknell, and it was received very favourably. And after a couple of attempts, we were successful in getting an OE supply from the factory in Germany. So we're able to buy new engine and drivetrains from BMW. Thank you very much, BMW. And of course, we buy used engine and drivetrains from Crash bikes and older, longer in the tooth bikes.
Yeah. Now, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, the guy who's perhaps got a BMW and says, "Oh, I fancy one of those," I mean, can he buy this as a kit?
We sell them semi-knockdown and fully built, although most of the vehicles we sell are fully built. Semi-knockdown price. Let me tell you prices?
Yeah.
Semi-knockdown prices start at just under 8,000. That's everything excluding the engine and drivetrain. Wheels, tyres, paintwork, the whole lot. Requires about 120 hours assembly, right up to a fully built brand new vehicle, which costs roughly 15,000 plus VAT. PT.
Now, what were you saying about old things before, Paul? This is the business, is it not?
Yeah, I didn't mean you really, Jeff.
No,
this is very futuristic,
This
isn't
more
it?
suits my image. It's racy and
You think
fast
so?
and lightweight. And,
All right,
yeah.
it's very
It's even silver.
Oh yeah, that's good. You're supposed to put it on your hair, not sup it, that stuff, you know. Very Star Warsy, this, isn't it?
It is. Well, that's one way of looking at it. But I think it's really neat, and it brings three-wheelers bang up to date, doesn't it?
Well, they're good fun. What do you think? Have you enjoyed driving these today?
Oh yeah, terrific amount of fun. I think you can see the affinity. They're not motorbikes, obviously, but you can see the affinity, aren't they?
Well,
roaring engines. And
Yeah, I know it's a cliche to say, and you hear it so many times, that it's a driver's car or bike or what are they called, these things?
well,
Track
three-wheelers,
car.
isn't it?
Yeah, whatever. But you really do need to get in them and drive them to appreciate them, don't
Yeah.
you?
Oh, they are a fun thing. I mean,
And you don't need a full licence, you know that as well, don't you?
That's right.
You can
Bike
drive
licence.
A bike
yeah.
You don't need a full car licence, should I say? But
No.
you can ride these on a bike licence.
That's right, and I think that's the attraction, as Mark was saying. You know, that's where the market's coming.
Good fun, and they go like the clappers,
But anyway,
don't they?
yeah, they do, and I'm dying to go. So you're staying in there?
I'll stay here.
I
I'll
might
trust
feel
you.
your knee now.
No,
Is
you
that
don't.
right?
Keep your hands off mine. Go on, I'll trust you. Let's
Okay,
take me for a spin.
Let's go.
Woo! Beat me up, Scotty.
Wayne, stop messing with them buttons.
Oh, it's God. Right. I suppose I should be doing the bit I'm supposed to do, and that's answer some of these letters and inquiries. You caught me then. I was enjoying myself. Mr. Knowles of Liverpool has asked us about removing his wheels and powder coating them. The problem he's got, as quite a lot of people out there watching Two Wheels Better, he has the problem that he has no spanners. In fact, he doesn't like playing with his bike, he likes riding it. So what does he do on this occasion when he wants to have his wheels powder coated? Very, very simple. You can take it into your dealer and may you remove, will you powder coat, will you put it all back again, and so on. But that could cost him a few quid, because if it's a Triumph dealer, of course, obviously it's going to be expensive. I suggest really that you try and find a local workshop, ask him to remove the wheels, perhaps even then take them away, take them down to your local tyre specialist, have him remove the tyres, take them to the powder coater, get it done, get them painted, whatever you're having done, get the tyres put back on at the tyre specialist, and get the dealer then or the workshop to throw the wheels back in. Bearing in mind, you see, these little jobs of having prettification and having all the paintwork done are not really very, very cheap to end up with not dissimilar thing. So, things like this don't come cheap. But anyway, that's fair dinkum, and I hope we've answered your question, Mr. Knowles, and anybody else out there who doesn't like playing with spanners.
Coming up after the break, Aprilla's RS 250.
Young Neil, do you come here often?
I do actually, about 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That's an original chat up line, Jeff.
Oh, well, I'm like that.
My mum's warned me about guys like you.
Less of that, young man. So, listen, this training thing, obviously I know it's important to you, but is this an all-round, Neil, fitness thing, is it? Is it stamina, muscle building, the whole thing?
Yeah. To ride a motorcycle, you don't want to be too muscly anyway, you don't want to be muscle bound. Because every time you crash, you'd pull muscles, you know. When you push weights, you build muscle, and if you'll see every rider, people like Schwantz, you've got to be slim really and carry the least amount of weight as possible. So I combined doing a lot of light weights with mountain biking, swimming, running, and it's just the weight side of it is to keep the strength there, but to keep everything toned up. I don't want to be too strong, and I don't want to build muscle. So you have to be careful all the time. You have to limit the amount of time I spend in the gym.
Do you keep this training up through the winter as well, or do you go to fat and flab and all
No,
the rest
not at all. At the end of the season, I usually have about a month off, which is just about enough. I get away completely from motorcycles. I get away from healthy eating. I get away from the gym, and I just relax and I go out with my mates, and I slob out, if that's a phrase you could use. But after a month, I've had enough of that. I do enjoy training. I speak to a lot of riders, and they don't actually enjoy training at all, and to them it's like a chore. And
for me, it's fun. You know, I love it. I get paid to ride motorcycles. The best thing I can do is, when I turn up at a race meeting, is turn up at the fittest I could possibly be. Because when you're in a race, you don't know if your tyres are going to last 25 laps. You don't know if the engine's going to last. So all you can do is guarantee that you're 100% fit.
Because keeping yourself physically fit, that's got to be important for some of the temperatures that you're racing as well, where it's very hot, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you do the British Championships, you're racing in England, you do 15 laps and it's not too hot. But when you're doing the World Championships, I race twice in a day in places like Malaysia and Indonesia, and it's 35 to 40. You know, and that is hot. And it's not just the heat that gets you; it's the humidity
as well.
And you know, you can't breathe. And the first time I went to Malaysia was in '93, and I wasn't very fit, and I couldn't believe how bad it was. And that was riding a 125. So since then, I've really pulled my finger out, and you know, got my fitness head back together, and I've been putting in some hard work.
Training's obviously important to you, and so you find when you're at home, but what do you do when you're on your travels around the world? Do you have to go and seek out a local gym or what?
It's funny, you know, in all the different countries we go to, in Australia and America, I know exactly where the gym is. I usually know the people that run it, because over, you know, 3 or 4 years now of doing the circuit, you get to know people, and they're normally really friendly, they remember your face, and it's like, oh, you're back to race, you know, and it's good, it's nice to go to different gyms and meet different people.
Now, on this fitness thing, I mean, there's more to it than just the physical self, as it were. There's the mental self as well. And I've been reading a few of these stories about you going to see some German professor and all the rest of it. What's behind that bit?
Well, it's funny that, because a lot of people have asked me this question. Yes. I think everybody's opinion is that I've been seeing this psychiatrist, which I haven't been. I went to Germany once, just before Christmas, for a fitness test, and I flew to Munich, and I went to a university in Munich, and I met this professor. It's called Professor Hackfort. And he did just a general overall fitness test, and he did some what he calls psychological tests, and basically all they were just like reaction tests and things like that. And he assessed my results, and he sort of pinpointed where I could improve. Yeah. But it's not a psychiatrist or anything like that. People have been saying, oh, you've been seeing this special shrink. Can I have his telephone number? Other motorcyclists have been saying that. So it's not actually what it seems. It was very interesting to see, and it's something I'd never done before.
So there's no repeat visits. 'Cause I mean, one of the links was that you've obviously got innate ability, but there's this concentration thing. Again, Neil, I'm tending to go on what I've read, and so but that wasn't behind it then. So
no, well, if you read it in a newspaper, it must be factual. It's got to be, Jeff, because they never make a mistake or even slightly exaggerate, do they?
No, that's true.
No, it's the point that you made about the concentration is something that I have suffered with a little bit, and I can blame myself, but I can also blame the team a little bit for that. And the lack of preparation we had in pre-season testing with just the overall package of the suspension and tyres. And what I found was, in the races, I could do 5 or 6 fast laps. But when push came to shove and it was the last 5 laps and my tyres had gone off, and we just didn't get the bike set up right. Hence, you know, the last 5 laps I could drop 2 or 3 places and go from a good position, say 5th, down to 8th place, you know. So that is a problem. Partly mine and partly Ducati's, but hopefully we're going to rectify those problems for this year.
I thought this week I'd let you have a look in my garage at my latest flying machine. If only. Lots of bikes these days are referred to as GP replicas, but how many of them fit the bill as well as this? Aprilla's RS 250, your own little piece of Italian exotica. It's a liquid-cooled V-twin 2-stroke, and being a 2-stroke it means it's a bit noisy. It's also a bit smelly, and it chucks out blue smoke, especially first thing in the morning when you're on full choke. And it also means that to get it to go anywhere fast, you've got to rev the proverbials off it. In fact, the rev counter doesn't really need any numbers on it. It should just have a big arrow here at 8,000 RPM saying, this is where it starts, and another one at 12,000 saying, it all ends here. Because below 8,000 RPM it really doesn't do very much at all. But if you're not hanging on when it hits that power band, boy are you in for a shock. So if you're looking for a bike that can take you to work and back during the week and give you lots of excitement at the weekends, then this isn't it. Well, it must be good at something. Yes, it is. It's very good at going very, very fast on decent biking roads with nice twisting bends and long straights. Sounds very much like a racetrack, doesn't it? Well, it should. That's where the RS 250 really is at home. And just to reinforce that point, Aprilia have very cleverly incorporated a little lap counter, lap timer should I say, into this LCD screen. And that's operated on the left hand there with this little lap timer button. Normally you'd find a headlamp flasher there. The headlamp flasher is over on this side. And it used to say pass, but the A's worn off and it now says something, well, completely different. The track, it really is where it's at home. After all, it's a racing bike. You wouldn't use Mick Doohan's 500 GP bike for trudging down Oxford Street, would you? Would you? I think the best thing about this machine is perhaps the most obvious. It looks gorgeous. I've had it parked up outside the office for a few days and it's attracted more attention and won more admirers than any of the other fancy sports bikes that we use. Apart from the racy bodywork, I reckon it's the polished frame and the fancy polished banana-shaped swing arm that really do the trick. Not to mention Brembo twin pots at the front, adjustable suspension front and back and a very smart looking twin exhaust system. Most people say, wow, I bet that's fast. Well, for a 250 it is. 130 mile per hour from a 60 brake horsepower two-stroke is pretty good. But all of this doesn't come cheap. It's a true GP replica with drop-dead gorgeous looks, terrific performance and handling providing you're on decent roads and as much street cred as you could ever want. It'll cost you around £6,200. Not cheap, I know. In fact, it's more expensive than a brand new 600 Suzuki Bandit and not far short of the price of a 1200 Bandit. But hey, what price, style? And in next week's Two Wheels Better, we've a look at this year's Sheffield Motorcycle Show.